So most games involve basic movement mechanics, but there are a lot of games out there that require more advanced movement mechanics that are just better and more useful, like a double jump or a dash. And in this series, I'm going to be showing you how to make a bunch of different types of advanced movement in your Roblox games. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make a sprint mechanic, which will allow you to hold left shift and sprint, and also it will have a stamina system in the game as well. So if I show you, I have the movement speed set very low, and this is customizable obviously, but if I hold down the shift bar, we start sprinting, so we start going double the speed, and then if I let go, then the bar just stops, and it just recharges after a few seconds, and I can keep running, and yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's basically what I'm going to show you how to make in today's video. So let's get into it. Alright guys, so I've opened up a new base plate, and the very first thing that we need to do is make the GUI for the sprint bar. So I made this GUI, which I showed you at the beginning of the video, and basically there's a screen GUI which I made and named sprint bar, and then I made two frames here. I'm actually gonna uppercase this S, but basically I made two frames and I put one inside of the other one, and this is very important because we need to make sure that it can scale right, I guess. So make your first frame and then make the second frame the same size as the first one. And then what you need to do is set the size to 1. So you just type in 1, like just go to this bar right here in size and just type in 1, and it will automatically fill this whole frame with this frame. And the reason we're doing this, you may be confused as to why, but it makes it easier to kind of change the size of it and tween it smoothly, I guess you could say. So yeah, and yeah, if you want to tween it smoothly, you can't really use like normal size unit, so it's better to use scale than offset. And yeah, and you may be, yeah, if you don't know much about GUIs, this may be confusing to you, but just add a screen GUI and add a frame with a frame inside it, I guess, or first make this frame, size it to how you want, then add this frame in it, make sure the frame is the same size or whatever by just simply typing 1 in here, and it will be all set up and ready to go. Now the very next thing that we need to do is add a local script to this screen GUI, and we'll call this the local sprint handler. And basically this script is going to handle like the input of the player, and it will be able to send some signals to the server in order to make the player go faster, so we can avoid hackers and stuff. And so in order to make this work, we're also going to have to go into server script service and add a script in there, and we'll just call this the sprint handler because yeah, or you could call it server sprint handler, doesn't matter. And then finally, the last thing we need to do is create two remote events, and one will say sprint off, and the other we can just say sprint on. And basically these two events will essentially be fired from this local script whenever we press left shift or whatever key you set it to, and it will activate this sprint handler script, which will cause the player to actually move faster, because we will be changing their move speed on the server. And the reason you want to do this on the server is so that everybody can see that they are sprinting. If you did this only in a local script, then I don't even know if it would work, because I don't know if you can get their character on the local side anyway. But even if you could, then that would just make a whole bunch of problems, because the players couldn't actually see where they were, because they would be moving faster on their screen but not on the other player's screen, essentially. But yeah, if you are confused about this, you can look up like server and clients like interactions, and they will talk about how that works. But yeah, and the next thing that we're going to do now is we are going to script this sprint handler server script. And so that's what I'm going to do right now, and I'll come back to you and explain what it does. Alright guys, so I just coded the server script. Keep in mind it's this sprint handler. And so basically I just defined both of these remote events, and then basically I tied two functions, one to each of them, and basically if the sprint is on, then it's very simple. It's just going to make their walk speed 16, and if it's sprint off, then it will be 8. And now you may be wondering what this 0 is then. Well, basically when you stop sprinting, the problem is that the player will keep running the same speed basically when you change the walk speed. So if you set the walk speed to 0, it will stop the player, and you just wait a certain, like a really small amount of time, and then you set it back to normal. So then basically they don't keep running 16 walk speed even after they have stopped sprinting, essentially, because they could keep walking, but while releasing the left shift button, essentially. So that's kind of what this does. It doesn't look the cleanest. Maybe there's some better way of doing it, but this is how the best way I've found, and it works just fine and dandy. It doesn't really affect the game that much. So yeah, anyways, yeah, but you can adjust these two values. This value should stay 0, but you can adjust how much you want them to go when they're sprinting, and also how much you want them to go when they're normally walking. And another thing to keep in mind is you're going to want to change the player's original walk speed to the same as this if you want to change how much they have. In this new base plate, it's actually 16, so I'm just going to set it to 8. So this is really slow, by the way. I know that, but I don't really care, because this is just a tutorial. But yeah, so now we just need to code this on the local side. And so I'm going to get back to you once I've scripted this whole thing. And then I will tell you everything. I will explain all of what it does. Alright guys, so I just wrote out all of the code in this script here, and I know it looks overwhelming, but I'm going to explain what all of this does. So yeah, if you want to know what it does, then feel free to listen. Also, I found out that this thing I had before here is stupid. So you can just delete that. You should probably delete that. I mean, if we play here, I found out that you don't need it. It just works. So yeah. But anyways, this is all the rest of the code, by the way. So yeah, but I'm just gonna explain what it does. So I defined a bunch of variables up at the top here. So we got the frame, and basically this is the very last frame. It looks script.parent.frame.frame, but basically this is the main frame here that you are going to kind of scale, I guess. Also make sure it's not visible, by the way. But yeah, and then we got the remote events defined here. We got the local player. We got the total amount of stamina that the player has. And I set a Boolean value here. So basically this detects if they are actually sprinting here. And I also got the tween service because we're going to need this in order to make the GUI for the stamina like move smoothly, I guess. I got context action service, and this basically allows you to like link a function to a button on your keyboard, I guess, and it will also translate to mobile as well. And basically it's just a button that activates the function in your game, and this is way better than using like user input service or whatever it's called to, activate this. And then this is just the string for the thing, and the reason we make this variable is so that it's just easier to script, because if you misspell this when you are typing the name of this, then it will be bad. You don't really need to understand that, I guess. You don't even need this variable, to be honest. It just makes it easier to script. Instead, here you could just put a string, then, which is the name, because or not here, but here, yeah. But it's just for the name of the action that we're binding in the context action service. But yeah, anyways, this code right here, it just makes the bar not visible, because we don't want the sprint bar to be visible whenever we're not running or we haven't used any stamina up. So yeah, that just makes it look cleaner, in my opinion. You can decide to have it visible when you're not running if you want, but yeah. And then here is the main function here. This is the sprint function, and basically, before I explain what this does, we actually bind it here. So we use context action service to bind this sprint function, which we have up here, and can create touch button. Oh yeah, I set that to true, so it makes a button on mobile. And then basically this parameter here is the button you want on the keyboard to use it. But basically what this line of code does is it binds it to the key, like I explained before. So if I press left shift in my game now, it will activate this function. That's the whole idea of this line of code. And you can change this by saying enum.keycode, and then you can just delete that and decide to type any of the keyboard's things. You can scroll down, but I'm gonna do left shift because that makes the most sense, in my opinion. But you can do any key you want. Anyways, so now let's explain this kind of behemoth of a function. So basically, we have these parameters in this function which come from the context action service. And basically, these two parameters here we don't need, so that's why I put underscores for them. But the one we do need is this state parameter. And basically, we're detecting here in this if statement if the state is begin. So what that means is if the button is starting to be pressed, or if it just got pressed, it's basically, that's what's happening, right? If the button is being unpressed though, like if they were holding the button and they released it, then that's not begin, that's end essentially. And then it's also checking if the stamina is bigger than 0, because we need stamina in order to run. And then basically if all that is true, we're gonna set sprinting to true, and then we will fire the remote event to activate the sprint or the walk speed here. So it'll change our walk speed, and then we will yeah, and we're also firing it with the player, by the way, so you need a parameter here for the player. It will fire with the player, obviously, and then yeah, because that's really important. But anyways, yeah, and then it is setting the sprint bar's visibility to be true, and then it will do this loop here, which will basically subtract stamina over time as we sprint. So it's gonna wait until sprinting equals false or stamina equals 0, and then yeah, and then if the state isn't begin or stamina is not over 0, then we will say if sprinting, so we're still detecting if we are sprinting basically. So if our stamina ran out, essentially, that's kind of the idea or whatever, then we will set sprinting to false, and then we will fire the sprint off thing. And then basically there's a wait time here, and basically this is 3 seconds, because we will do this repeat loop and we will say 0.1 seconds, and then we will subtract from the wait time 0.1 seconds, and we'll keep going until the wait time equals 0 or sprinting equals to true. Now you may be wondering, what's the point of this? Why don't we just put wait 3? Well, basically the whole point is that if the player sprints, right, and then they stop sprinting, and then they start sprinting again before they start recovering stamina, then after they stop sprinting again, they could get stamina back, I guess, faster than 3 seconds. And so the whole idea of this is they have to wait a full 3 seconds after stopping every time. So yeah, that's kind of like my best way of explaining it. It's kind of confusing, but basically without this, there would be a glitch that would allow you to sprint, and then you could wait 2 seconds and then sprint again and then stop after like a split second, and then it would still allow you to recover stamina after a split second. But this basically resets the wait time after you sprint every time in order to like recover stamina. So it resets the wait time to recover, I guess. And then basically after this loop concludes, right, if we're checking here if the wait time is bigger than 0, because if it's bigger than 0, that means that we didn't wait through the whole wait time, so we have to return. But if it's not bigger than 0, then we will start recovering our stamina. And this is the loop to recover stamina, and it waits till either sprinting's true or the stamina is 100, basically. And if the stamina is 100, then we will turn the frame back invisible. So the sprint bar will be back to invisible because we don't need to see it anymore. You don't have to make it invisible if you don't want, but I just like it because it's kind of cleaner, I guess. And yeah, and then down here we have a repeat loop, which is basically continuously tweening the sprint bar to kind of align with how much stamina we have. And so it's just waiting a very short time, and then it's activating a tween, which is linear. You're going to want to make sure it's linear because we are activating so many of these tweens. So if it was like bouncy, then it would be like bouncing all over the place and stuff. And then you're probably going to want to make the tween like pretty short. I just made it a half second. And then the size, we're just setting a UDIM2 value because GUIs need to use UDIM2, not Vector3. But yeah, they use UDIM2. And then basically, you can see in the frame, it's 10101 or 1010, right? And so basically, since we're using scale, we can easily scale it out of 100 or however much stamina you have. See, if you have 200 stamina, you could change this to 200 and it wouldn't matter. And then yeah, we're just playing the tween. It's all made in one line. And if you're confused as to how tweens work, you can search up some videos. I'm pretty sure there's a good video by the Dev King for that. And then, yeah, if stamina equals 0, then we will turn their sprinting off. So basically, we'll stop the player if their stamina ever reaches 0. And it's repeating until script enabled equals false. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't think we need this. We could just do while true do. I don't know why I put that there, but do. Yeah. Alright, but that doesn't matter. The point is, this is just gonna tween a lot and make the thing look smooth. And so if we play the game here, I set the walk speed really low, but as you can see, we can sprint, and if we let the bar go all the way down, it will eventually just stop us from walking. And yeah, it was still tweening. That's why it looked like we had stamina. So maybe you want to change that to look better, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah, anyways, that is about it for this video. But yeah, again, if you want to change the stats of this, you really can. You can just change this variable. You're going to want to make sure to change a lot of values in the script wherever stamina is being used, and you're going to want to change this value as well. But overall, that is how this stuff works, and I really hope you enjoyed this little tutorial that kind of teaches you how to communicate through the server and the local side while also creating a cool movement mechanic for your game. And so yeah, if you like this video, subscribe, and also if you need any help or have questions, join my Discord server. There's people in there, and we just improved it so you can find the scripting help section and stuff, and you can just talk to people about Roblox. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. So, bye.